Yes. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is the Fantasy Empire with your friend Chris Vaccaro. Very special day for this guy. Very special day for this guy who's sitting as far away from his computer and microphone as possible.
No, I got closer this week, Nando. But yeah,
this doesn't look right. This does not look right.
Well, you know what? Different sides.
All right, watch this. Watch this. I'll fix it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chris. There we go. 1, 2. For those of you listening on the podcast, that was a worthless first complaint of the day by Chris Vaccaro because we were on the wrong sides of the screen on the video feed. So,
Nando, what's up, buddy? It's
everybody.
It's the home stretch here, my man. It's draft week, and my big drafts got kicked off earlier this week, and they continue straight through the next 10 days. The live drafts here in New York starting Friday, and Vegas next week. So we're right in the middle of it all, and hopefully we can help our listeners get ready for their drafts this week as well.
I don't think anyone really cares about your draft schedule, to be honest, man.
Okay.
It's weird that you would kick off the show and try to bring people in by just being like, well, here's my draft schedule.
I didn't say my draft schedule. I just said I'm drafting all week and next week, and I know everybody that's listening is as well. So that's what I'm excited for this week's show, Nando. This is, last minute when you prepare all summer long for your drafts, Nando, and you get to this point in the season where we are the home stretch, you start second guessing yourself a lot of times on certain players, and some players that you weren't in on all year long, all summer long. At the last second, you say, you know what, maybe I should actually rethink this and go back and go in on that player. And vice versa, maybe there was guys that you were drafting all summer that you're starting to say, you know what, I don't really like the price on this guy anymore, or I don't like his situation at all anymore. So that's what today's show is going to be about, Nando. Guys that we're having last minute regrets or thoughts on as we enter our drafts.
For me, I'm actually more interested in who you're out on. You're souring on people. Yeah, because you know what? Yeah. You're a stubborn guy. Mm-hmm. And for you to be like, I've kind of changed my mind about, maybe I would think. No, actually, that's wrong. I was gonna say I would think Anthony Richardson was your guy, but he got too helium-y.
Wow, talk about not knowing your friend. I wouldn't draft Anthony Richardson this year for anything in the world. How about that? He's the one quarterback that I don't even think about drafting. So you couldn't have been more wrong.
Why is that?
I just think he's going to be a complete deer in headlights this year. And the team is obviously complete turmoil over there. He's not going to have his bell cow back, at least for the first 4 weeks, possibly longer, to rely on to set up more play action passes for him. Other than that, I just don't like that situation. I don't like the team. I think he's in over his head. And I think when you get into when the bright lights come on and he has to read defenses, it's going to have a lot of weeks where he is, maybe in jeopardy of being pulled for a veteran like Gardner Minshew to come off of the sidelines and help the team out in maybe the second half. Because I just think he's over his head.
Well, that was actually just supposed to be a segue to Jonathan Taylor because you wanted to start talking about him first.
Well, that's
it's no longer requests. These are Chris Vaccaro demands for the show.
It's obviously the big news in the fantasy world. Yesterday, we were waiting to see if he got traded, most likely to Miami. That didn't happen. And then on top of not getting
traded. That didn't happen yet, though.
On top of not getting traded at the deadline, Nando, to get traded.
What's the deadline to get traded?
He then didn't, get activated off the PUP list. So now he's missing 4 games. So all of a sudden, fantasy drafters have been drafting him at the end of the second round, trying to be ahead of the market for when he showed up, this last week or two, and expecting to get a little discount because when he did either get traded to Miami or show up and play for Indianapolis, people were going to start taking him at the end of the first round or early second round. So everybody thought they were getting a draft discount in the late second, early third. And instead, the whole draft plan got blown up for everybody that's been taking him there. And now we saw last night, the first night since the news broke yesterday, where high stakes drafts happened, he was taken 63rd overall and 78th overall. Okay,
Woof.
so he's looking like he's going to be a 6th and 7th rounder. Still too rich for my blood. I wouldn't draft him there at all.
Are you just out completely on him? Like,
I want to say yeah, and as a high stakes player, we're never supposed to be completely out on anybody. There's supposed to be a price that every player makes sense at. But here's my biggest issue. If we want to talk about Jonathan Taylor, I saw
you
some
wanted to talk about Jonathan Taylor.
I heard some comparisons yesterday to Alvin Kamara. Like, hey, you got to wait 3 games for him. But Alvin Kamara, is coming back after 3 weeks. You get him back in week 4, and he's coming off the board in like the 6th and 7th rounds now of drafts. Jonathan Taylor, you might take in the 7th round, and after 4 weeks, it might be something else. Hey, I'm just gonna hold out even more. So,
or they stubbornly could just do like, remember Deshaun Watson, and I can't remember if this was. Remember Watson like demanded a trade, and then I can't remember if the accusations came out or if he like was that one full season where he was just like the third quarterback, never played, just stood on the sideline, right? Like
just sat out the rest of the season. Yeah, I mean, you don't know, so it could be an absolute burn, a burnt draft pick by you. So
Billy Hayes, shout out Billy Hayes. In the chat says Taylor's ADP will drop to the Kamara range. I think it'll drop lower than the Kamara range, actually.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, it's 70 last night, like I said, 63 and 78. That's where Alvin Kamara goes. He goes in between 65 and pick 85. So for me, I would
being harsher. You think home leagues, or you think high stakes people are going to be harsher on Taylor? I think home leagues are going to be harsher on Taylor.
I mean,
because look, he can still win you an overall.
So. Listen, Taylor comes back. Nando, if you're in a home league and you have 1 or 2 drafts, okay, you don't want to sit on a Jonathan Taylor and maybe have your whole, season ruined by a guy that doesn't even play for you. If you're
in the 6th round,
if you're playing, if you have a lot of teams, you play a lot of volume, you're playing 15, 20, 25 plus teams, then yeah, maybe 7th, 8th round, you take your shot and you hope in week 5 he shows up and all of a sudden he adds on to your team. But I thought he'd go in the 7th or 8th round. I wouldn't probably look at him until after the 7th round personally.
By the way, I want to shout out. I want to shout out a bunch of people. Shout out Billy Hayes with a Z. You say it out loud, it sounds like Hayes, but it's not. Yeah, no. Anyway, Dominator Live Drafts is a show that we're doing here on the network. Player Profile. It's live streaming of the FFPC $350 Fantasy Pros Players Championship drafts all week. Billy and Theo are going to be doing one if you're listening here live tonight at 10 p.m. on Wednesday, 10 p.m. But just check it out. I love live streams of drafts.
Yeah,
remember we did one. Buddy. Were you there that time? You and I did one together, didn't we?
No.
Or was that like me and Ronas and you were in that draft? Yeah, either way, I got a
no, but it's definitely a great way to prep for drafts this year. Is that you see more and more companies doing live drafts, live streams of online championships all summer long. And if you're not in a particular draft that night, it's a great way to get some really good fantasy draft prep is to watch these other leagues be drafted, and you sit back, you get better ideas of what you want to do when your draft comes, and it's really a popular thing now in the fantasy community is, live streaming these drafts. You're going to see a ton of them over these next 2 weeks. So yeah, check out Theo and Billy's draft.
We started that at CBS.
So the thing with Jonathan Taylor, Nando, is,
I want to talk about his backups. Okay, well, continue your Jonathan Taylor talk. Go.
No, go ahead.
Vi. No, this is your birthday. It's the Chris Vaccaro birthday show.
Yay. No, so listen, I mean, what we've had over the last week is,
I'm going to buy you a shirt with a proper collar for your birthday.
And Josh Jacobs comes into the 2nd round now. So he basically takes Jonathan Taylor's spot on the draft board. But at the same time now, with Jonathan Taylor backing out, I think what we're going to see now, and we've been seeing it over the last week to 10 days, is these running backs that were going in the 6th and 7th rounds, they're starting to creep up into the 5th round. And I don't know if it's the fantasy community, just looking at the running back position as a whole and saying, you know what, it's not as deep as we originally thought. And now just you see running backs just moving up and up, into that 4th and 5th round range, where the 5th round was predominantly all wide receivers for most of the summer. And now it's becoming very running back heavy in that 5th round. I think
guys
that's
moving
also,
up or down.
Say it again.
Guys moving up into the 5th or down from
moving up into the 5th, because wide receivers, even though they're heavy early, wide receivers, you can go into that 6th and 7th round and get a nice pairing of wide receiver 3s and 4s. So I just think the running back position, as we head into the main events, are going to actually move up a little bit more.
Permission to ask about the backups now, sir.
Sure.
Well, hey, look, I don't know, who are you targeting? Let's just say that like you are a Jonathan Taylor doomsayer and you don't think he's going to come back. Let's say like either he just, angrily holds out. Like, I think he's got to play one game, to be like, to register as this being a season to be a free agent next year. But let's just say he does whatever he can. What?
He's got to play 8 to register for a season, not 1.
You sure? You probably know better than I do.
I would hope so.
The backups, though. Who are you targeting, if anyone at all? Let's just say that you're of the mindset. Let's say someone out there is of the mindset like Jonathan Taylor is going to be gone for a big chunk of the season, and you kind of believe in the Colts offense, like enough to where you're like, oh, like maybe Deion Jackson's the guy, maybe Zach Moss is the guy.
Well, I mean, listen, we don't know how it's kind of interesting what's going to happen now with Taylor out for 4 weeks, because there's 3 guys that everyone's going to look to take a shot on. Obviously, Zach Moss, Deion Jackson, and Evan Hull. They're all different backs, but the wild card in all this is, when is Zach Moss going to come back? If he's not going to come back until weeks 3 or 4, it's going to be like a wasted pick. If we knew he was going to be ready by week 1, then maybe I would say that Zach Moss is in the lead for the lead role for at least 4 weeks, and then maybe beyond that. So he would be more of my pick, but with that broken arm still looming over him, I don't know when we're getting him back. Deion Jackson, he could be a nice add in rounds 15, 16 with, as a PPR back, a pass catching back there.
Well, he's a good back. He had some good games.
Yeah, man. He did. He had a couple. He had a monster game.
Remember that? Everyone loved it. It was like
100 balls in one game. So
yes.
Listen, I'm not moving any of these guys up my board to make sure I get one of them in drafts, but it's definitely one of these 3 guys is definitely a back to put on your roster for a little depth and let the situation play out, see how it looks in week 1. And, you put a little roster depth with any of these 3 guys. For me, I would say Zach Moss, I'd rather take the shot on, to answer your question, though.
If they do pull off a trade, say like in season for Jonathan Taylor, like, well, he's on the PUP list. Can you get traded while you're on the PUP list? That's a good question.
No, they have to wait until I think October 31st now.
No, that's the deadline. That's the last time you can trade.
Yeah, but I don't think he can be traded. I would have to look into it. I'm not going to speak out of turn. I don't know what the rule is now.
I'll Google it. Will you go on another one of your 10-minute soliloquies? Yeah.
Sounds good.
But I was just thinking, I got some texts yesterday about, Jonathan Taylor, blah, blah, blah. I was doing some yard work, so I didn't look at the news. I was just reading the texts and assumed that he got traded to Miami. And I'm like, well, who came back? You know what I mean? I would assume, they'll further muddy the running back situation by getting, Savon Ahmed back or something like that, right? Or would you not expect something like that? If you're going to dive in, it'd be Jonathan Taylor's gone. Jonathan Taylor's going to Miami still somehow. Something comes back, do you think? Or do you think it's just like a 4th round pick and let's get it over with?
No, it'll just be draft picks and everything. That's it.
Giovanni's got a good question. He's Italian, so you probably pay attention to him. It's about, let me his question's too specific, but Jonathan Taylor in a dynasty league. I know you hate dynasty leagues, but is there value there to go after him now and be like, hey, look, my team's probably going to suck this year. Let me go get Jonathan Taylor, probably cheap from a team who might be contending. How about that?
This is definitely the time right now to get him on the cheap from anybody. I don't know what that's going to hold in the future, though. So, dynasty-wise, I don't play any Dynasty Nando, so
I know it's weird.
Theo is probably the guy to talk about that. But listen, this show is about last-minute regrets and everything. So, we got a lot of players to cover. So we should.
You said start with Jonathan Taylor. I'm granting your birthday wish.
And we did. And we did.
You said you cut the cake this morning and said, I wish we could talk about Jonathan Taylor for the first 15 minutes of the show.
Yep. And
I said, why? That horse has been beaten. And you're saying, I just want to talk about him, though. It's my birthday. So we did it.
Well,
here's my biggest regret this fantasy draft season. In my earlier drafts, I didn't get enough Alexander Madison. Like, the more I look at the Madison situation, I went like in games where Madison has had 20 or more carries. There's only been 5 of them, but I mean, like, whatever. That's still 5 games with 20 more carries. That's the only volume sample that we have. Do you know how many times he's gone 90 or more yards rushing?
Enlighten me, my friend.
All 5, Christopher J. Vaccaro.
Yes.
How about that?
Listen, that's a great one, Nando, to be honest with you, because, you know, you were getting some really good discount prices on Alexander Madison all summer long with, you know, early in the season, we didn't know if Dalvin Cook was going to get re-signed and come back. Then people just were doubting him. The fantasy community was really down on him, you know, so he was going in the 7th and 8th rounds of draft. You see him now move up to where he's usually going in the 5th and 6th round. So at the prices he was going at all summer, yeah, I have a lot of regrets not being, you know, fully invested in him as well at that price. But now, even now, as we enter these last 2 weeks, you could see Madison. They cut Dwayne McBride, who a lot of people thought would factor into the backfield this year. And it's really, I mean, I don't know if you saw this today. The Vikings actually signed Myles Gaskin from Miami. So that adds a little depth behind it, because it was just, you know, Madison and Chandler. But you hear the beat reporters, the only running back that's taken first team snaps is Madison. So we could be looking at a running back here in the 5th round where he comes off the board as a full-blown bell cow, getting 15 to 20 touches a game here. So yeah, that's a perfect player to start with some regret on. Yeah, I wish I had more Madison.
Saying that he could be like end of 3rd round too much. I feel like I'm looking at these drafts again, like with clear eyes, and just forget about ADP, and like you're making a list of the bell cow backs, and like why isn't Madison going like at the end of the 3rd?
A lot of people
forget about strategy, right? Yeah, like this, he should be a 3rd round back, really.
I mean, listen, that's a heavy price, right? But you could see us halfway through the season sitting here and saying, wow, every week Madison's getting 17 carries for 85. It's a dynamic offense. He could catch the ball out of the backfield. Like, what are we just ignoring how, you know, what he can produce based on just name alone? And maybe, you know, like I said, the fantasy community, once everybody's, you know, everything gets going and people sour on a particular player, he stays at a certain price on the board. And I think that's what we've seen with Alexander Madison this last 2 months. But now people are starting to finally come around on him. And, you know, I'm in on Alexander Madison in the 5th, 6th round for sure.
Do you want to talk about some of your regrets? Well, actually, you know what? Let's take a quick break.
Well, let's say you want to take a quick break?
Well, we have to.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the first 20 minutes.
Sure.
Do you want to pick the sound effect that we play?
I'll leave that to the professionals.
Well, there's an alarm we could play. There's a dog. There's money. How about that? It's your birthday. You pick.
Pick one and roll with it.
Song. Let's see. I'll do the alarm for you because I love you.
Let's take a moment to talk about Underdog Fantasy. Now, many of you have already signed up. Thousands have signed up from Player Profiler already over the years. Underdog has supported us since 2020. Much of what you see on Player Profiler is because of Underdog, because of their support. Get the Underdog app, plug in that promo code Underworld. I used to play Underdog just for the best ball drafts. I mean, the best ball drafts are amazing. These draft rooms fill so quickly, and you can win life-changing money. You want to take advantage of all the sleepers we talk about on this show? Well, what better place than in an Underdog draft room to do that? And I recommend taking your Underdog play to the next level by diving into their NFL pick'ems. It's important to correlate those NFL pick'ems. You can pick both the quarterbacks and the wide receivers to exceed expectations. Correlate them, and you can 5x your payout. Bada bing, bada boom. Underdog Fantasy, the promo code is Underworld. For an instant deposit match up to $100. Underdog is the truest friend of the Underworld.
Nice.
Hold on. Give me the dog. Yeah. Well, I don't know what kind of dish it says.
I told you, letting you have sound effects on this show is probably the worst thing to ever happen to us because you are an absolute child and you'll just make these sounds all show long. Anyway, Nando, you talk about a 5th-round running back. I want to talk about another 5th-round running back that maybe I'm having second regrets on, where I was drafting him all season long in the 7th and 8th rounds, and he's another running back that's come and moved into the 5th round now, and that's James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. I'm starting to wonder if maybe we've priced this particular running back out for several reasons. You know, we all love him in the fantasy community. He's one of the hottest names on the board at that position for sure. And, you know, his ADP over the first week and a half of main events is 55. So, yeah. I mean, how much more can we send this guy up the board? You know, with him not being able to give us back value. You know, Damian Harris is now healthy and has come back. We could be losing goal line touches. You know, they didn't bring.
You're already losing them to Allen. You're already losing to Josh Allen.
Yeah. So you got Josh Allen and Damian Harris. I mean, I don't want to take a running back in the 5th round just because everybody else is in on this guy. And, you know, he's giving me 12 touches a game and he's coming out, you know, in the red zone. You know, how is he going to pay back that ADP and 5th round price unless he's giving me 4 or 5 catches every week and making the most of his 12 carries? So we love the player. We love the offense. We love, you know, everything that's associated with him. But maybe we just loved him so much because we saw these things and he was going off the board in the 7th and 8th round. Now those days are gone and we have to look at him as a 5th round running back. So like if we're on the board here, Nando, and it's Alexander Madison or James Cook, you know, whereas I would have told you a month ago, give me James Cook. Now I'd rather have Alexander Madison.
You know who I felt a little bit of buzz on was Latavius Murray too, man. Like who you're not even mentioning, but I mean, Buffalo's not a team that's like a bell cow team, really. You know what I mean? Like even with Singletary, even with Zach Moss, who we talked about before, is in the mix. Like all these guys were in the mix. It was never like
veteran. He's just a solid veteran back that's, you know, probably going to get a couple carries a game. But, you know, with Harris, listen, you got to choose between one of them.
But what if like James Cook, I mean, like maybe James Cook, and I know there are metrics and stuff like this, but you know, you don't have it until you subjectively hear it from the coaches. Like maybe they just don't like how he blocks. Maybe Josh Allen doesn't like him, you know, when he's in the game. And maybe Latavius Murray shows up and he's like, this is the guy I want, you know, next to me. You know what I mean? Like maybe this is the guy I like a lot. And that could have, I mean, Josh Allen is your
keep
guy.
him off the field. Sure. Maybe James Cook plays 60% of the snaps and then the other 40% is, you know, divided between Murray and Harris. These are all things you got to look at. And when, like I said, when you're on the clock and it's the 5th round and you're like, oh, I need a running back here, to take James Cook over some of these other running backs that are on the board at the same time that you know are going to be playing at a 75-80% clip and touching the ball more, you know, maybe it's a better time. Maybe it's a time now to pivot away from James Cook. Be grateful that we got the shares and at the price we got them, you know, the last couple months. But like I said, that's over and done with now. So he's one of those running backs that I loved. But now that we come in and the big money's on the line, maybe he just got outpriced. And I don't know how many shares of James Cook I'm going to have, you know, at that 5th round price.
Let me ask you this related question that you're going to accuse me of going off the rails on, but it's actually related.
Oh, wow. Never. You never
Not
go
just
off
because
the rails, Nando.
You know what? But it makes sense. And you're go ahead. What topic would you like to bring up?
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, how good can he be?
Yeah.
The more
all in on Justin Jefferson this year.
This is more like I've actually sat down and like had a clear head for, you know, the first time in draft season, really.
That's the second time you've said you're seeing the board clearly. You have a clear head. Like, are we expecting a huge, you know, draft season from Nando DeFino this year? Are you going to give us Donovan Peoples-Jones this episode of last year?
If you're lucky,
Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I've dropped my leagues down. I'm like the opposite of Vaccaro.
Yes.
I'm the
We've gone from 3 down to 2 this year. Congratulations.
Arakov.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah.
Yes.
I've dropped my leagues down so I can focus more. But really, it's like our content churn that we've had at The Athletic has kind of slowed down a little bit now. We're more, you know, more updating. And anyway, the point is I got some time and I'm thinking more about Dalvin Cook. And the more you read about Breece Hall, like Greg, our Inside Injuries guy, is writing about Breece Hall and like how like it's not just an ACL tear, MCL, LCL are involved. And like that's why Javonte Williams is, you know, farther along in his recovery. Hall could have some complications. You know, you always see these guys come back from just an ACL. And we talked about this before, but it makes me think more and more like Aaron Rodgers, veteran quarterback, trying to win a Super Bowl. Dalvin Cook, Pro Bowler, who's still in his prime, shows up. I don't know if we're guaranteed, like if we're too high on Breece Hall and then too low on Dalvin Cook.
All right, so Breece Hall is So Breece Hall is definitely, a big topic right now in every draft. He's just one of those players. Everybody's trying to see where he's going to go. You're going to get crazy value on him. He could definitely be that running back that you select in the 5th round, where he usually goes in these drafts, and he could provide 2nd round value. It's all about this injury he's coming off of. For me, I look at the situation. They gave Dalvin Cook a ton of money, and they didn't give him a ton of money to come here and play 20% of the snaps. So to me, I think it's going to be a 50-50 type split. I think you're going to see a lot of Dalvin Cook in the backfield, maybe Breece Hall split out, because I don't think that the depth that the Jets have at the receiver position is looking also good here. So you might have, and we saw it on Hard Knocks a couple weeks ago, they split Breece Hall out wide. So you might see a bunch of times when they're both on the field together. But for me, if you're giving me a running back, I'd rather have, if you told me, hey, do you want Breece Hall in that 4th or 5th round range, or will you take a shot on Dalvin Cook in the 8th or 9th round range as your RB3? Give me Dalvin Cook. Surprisingly,
that's what I'm saying. So
I don't think he'll be a league winner where Breece Hall.
I think he will.
Well,
here's
maybe.
The thing. Who's the Jets' offensive coordinator? Nathaniel Hackett.
Hackett.
Give me the 2 of the wide receivers, Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb, who used to play with Aaron Rodgers. Like, who's controlling this team, really, if you think about it? His old offensive coordinator, 2 of his old wide receivers are there. You don't think Aaron Rodgers, give me Dalvin Cook, please, and, let's go win a title? I want Dalvin Cook as my running back. He's calling the shots, man.
Dalvin Cook is there because Aaron Rodgers wanted him, for sure.
That's what I'm saying. So. He didn't let's bring him in. He could back up Hall, maybe. You know what I mean? He's saying, Hall, let's just forget about him and let's run Dalvin Cook, all-pro running back. Who I played against a bunch.
You're pitching it, but you're pitching it as if Dalvin Cook's going to get 18 carries a game and Breece Hall could get 4.
I think that might happen. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. I think Breece Hall maybe will have 11 carry games, 10 carries, 8 carries, whatever. But he also could have a hamstring injury takes him out for a little longer than it needs to, like a high ankle sprain that could take him out for a little longer than it needs to. A little problem in his other knee that could take him out a little longer than it needs to.
All right, so you're in on Dalvin Cook and you're out on Breece Hall as we enter the last week of drafts. I got you.
Enough about me, though.
Another guy that I was out on all summer, I wasn't really drafting him, especially in that 7th, 8th round range where he was going. And I wish I had a bunch of shares at that price, because now he's steamed up also all the way up to the 5th round, is from the Washington Commanders, Jahan Dotson. He's the hottest wide receiver name on the board. Everybody's trying to get Dotson. And, for me, I just can't see a path where he's unsuccessful here in this offense. Terry McLaurin is battling turf toe. They really don't have much after that. I know they have your boy Curtis Samuel. We really haven't heard much of Samuel, this training camp, but he's a distant third in this offense. They really don't have a tight end to speak of in this offense. And I don't see how Dotson doesn't, come out of the gate on fire and is, a weekly 8 to 10 target wide receiver. So for the price that he's going, ADP right now over the last 10 days of 57, I'm in on Dotson. And I know a lot of people in the fantasy community feel the same way right now, because everybody's fighting for him on the draft board.
Let me ask you a question, just strategically, as Chris Vaccaro, Hall of Famer. When you see a guy like Eric Bieniemy come in, and this might be a weird situation because Bieniemy, you don't know where he begins and where Andy Reid ends. Yeah. But he's coming in and he's obviously transforming this Washington offense. And he spent so long making Travis, maybe it was him, maybe it was Andy Reid, blah, blah, blah. But Travis Kelce was the centerpiece of that Chiefs offense. And it's not like they didn't have good receivers, it was just it ran through Kelce.
Yeah.
So are we dismissing Logan Thomas too quickly? Is that are we just, are we
Logan
not?
Logan Thomas has got so many miles on him, and I don't think you could pinpoint him in this offense. This offense is a two-man show. It's Terry McLaurin and Dotson.
Well, no, that's what it was.
No, that's what it is. That's
you
what
think the enemy's just going to be like, yeah, let's run the same offense.
Start creating false narratives with Logan.
It's not
Thomas
a false narrative. They got a different offensive coordinator.
Logan Thomas doesn't even get thought of in a 20-round draft, Nando. So let's focus on the players that actually are good and actually get drafted, like Dotson. And if you want to put your flag plant on Logan Thomas this year as one of your guys, one of your Nando 32nd round specials, then say it with your chest. But
I don't know what that means.
It means say it. That's your guy, Logan Thomas. That's Chris. That's what you want to do.
Christopher, Logan Thomas is my
Nobody
guy.
Can see that.
This is Nando's chest talking.
Listen, another reason why I think Dotson's definitely have come into my draft plans is just because I like the way the kid Sam Howell looks. And
everybody's big on Howell's another guy who's like
he was never getting drafted, but now you see him in the 17th, 18th rounds of drafts. People are making him the QB2. He can get it done on the ground. He can take off and run. He probably add 30 to 40 yards rushing every week. You could see this team struggling and always playing from behind. That adds into more of a factor for Howell and for Dotson and McLaurin. This is one of those offenses where I think it's sneaky potential to help you in fantasy this year, week in and week out.
What do you think? I mean, like of putting a little money on the Commanders to win the NFC East and like a crazy upset. Like I know Philly's like the favorite.
Not. Absolutely not. They're the only team that doesn't have a chance of winning the NFC East.
Why?
That's a Nando bet right there.
It's not a Nando bet.
Take the Commanders to win the NFC East. Absolutely not. No shot. Timestamp it. Record it. Everything. Commanders don't have a shot. So that's that. You have some of the biggest powerhouses. You have Philly and Dallas. Philly's the favorite
is not a powerhouse.
In the NFC. Dallas is the third favorite according to Vegas in the NFC. And to me, the Giants are a team that's going to take another step this year and be about a 10-win team. So you have 3 monster powerhouse teams. And then again, Commanders are going to be playing 6 games against these teams. They should be trailing in all of them. It sets up well for Howell in this offense. So, yeah, for sure.
What were the Giants supposed to be last year at this time?
What were they supposed to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, not that good.
They're supposed to be 3-14, right? They were 3-14 team.
No, I don't know about that. But...
All right. Well, what was their over under? Like I think it was 5.5.
I'm surprised. I already bet this, Nando, but the Giants win total 8.5 wins. I already bet that a month ago. I'm shocked. At
under?
That.
You went under?
Absolutely not.
You're a Giants fan. That's why, man.
I don't bet with my heart, to be honest with you. I just love that, to be a 9-8 team and win that bet. I think the Giants definitely a 9-win team this year.
All everyone talked about last year was how the Giants and the Vikings were playing over their heads and they don't deserve these records and blah, blah, blah. And now all of a sudden everyone's just done like a total 180 on the Giants and they're in love with them. And I don't get like what happened last year when we were in the thick of it and everyone said they sucked.
What other players are coming into your draft plan or going out of your draft plan as you enter your drafts, Nando?
Listen, I was told we have to talk about betting on this show, so I brought it up because I'm a team player.
Gave you
unlike you. It's bad advice. Maybe the Washingtons to win the whole thing is the way. To win the whole thing is the way to go. Maybe Cole Turner's the guy you want at tight end for the Commanders.
I'll give you a 3rd-round receiver that I didn't expect to draft at all this offseason. I haven't drafted him yet, but as we enter the final 2 weeks of the season, I think he's definitely in my draft plan now, and that's Keenan Allen of the Chargers. Coming into this draft season, I really thought that I wouldn't, his better days were behind him. But now you're hearing all these reports about how good he looks. We love the quarterback. We love the offense. That 3rd round is a real struggle for me, Nando, this year in fantasy drafts, and we just lost Jerry Jeudy, who was my 3rd-round target, to be honest with you. In that mid-3rd round of drafts, I was always targeting Jerry Jeudy. He comes out now, and it's all those other receivers that are around that area that I'm like, you know what? I'm not really in love with them. So I'm going in different directions when I hit the 3rd round of drafts this year. But Keenan Allen has now come into my draft plan where I'm like, you know what? I could see it, a fast-paced offense, Like I said, he's got Herbert with him. He's playing more outside than just the slot this year. If he can hold up and not get banged up again this year, like he has been these last couple of years, hopefully he had a monster last 6 games of the season as we head into 2023 here. Keenan Allen is someone that I don't own any shares of this draft season so far, but I'm coming around on him again.
Let me ask you a question. Actually, I have 2 questions. I have 2 follow-ups. Sure. Number 1, is this your pivot off of Mike Williams after like knowing you for so long?
No, it isn't.
Like I've known you for 15 years, and every year you love Mike Williams.
All 15 of them?
Even in high school, you were following him in high school, like this Mike Williams guy.
He was great at Clemson. Anyway, no, you know what, Nando? That's a good question, and it's not a pivot off of him. I just drafted Mike Williams the last couple nights. I like Mike Williams. I think he's a really good pick in the late 4th round, early 5th round where he's going. So I'm in on this Chargers offense. I think they're both good prices for Allen and Mike Williams. I think they both can have successful seasons as fantasy picks in those 3rd and 4th rounds of drafts. So I think there's enough. Food to go around for them to be successful.
Here's B. You mentioned the 3rd round's problem for you. You're really big on like roster construction, and you kind of follow like I don't want to say paint by numbers, but you want to go wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. Like you have like a set position.
Yeah.
So is the 3rd round making you rethink like if there's a tantalizing running back here, I should get him? Or are you so married to your strategy of just going wide receivers? You're like, I just can't find a good wide receiver that I like in the 3rd. Like, are you stretching for a wide receiver, or are you going to try and go like a different build?
No, Nando, that's actually like your first great question in like 3 years. So
you just said great question.
No, you're really.
So no, yeah.
No, you're getting good at this, my friend. I'm happy for you. You've come a long way. But it's actually a good question, and to answer it, it depends on where you are on the draft board. It depends on if you're drafting from the front or the back, and it changes my whole draft approach, to be honest with you. It definitely will switch my mind knowing that I don't love that many receivers in the 3rd round. If I'm in the beginning of the 1st round or in the middle of the 1st round, I am more inclined to go receiver starts, because I know that when I come to the 3rd round, there's not going to be that receiver that I really like that much. So I'm going to pivot off to the running back position. Maybe there's a Mark Andrews sitting there. He's another player that's on my list of guys that I didn't think I'd be drafting that much this year. That's actually coming more into my draft plan just because of that exact question that you just brought up. Why not go after the elite tight end right there? You see Darren Waller also coming into the 4th round now of drafts, now that the big money's on the line, and a lot of great players who want to move him up. So you have your shot at getting a Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller. And maybe in that 3rd, early 4th round, you want to pivot and get the advantage at the tight end position, because then it gets thin. It gets thin quick, just like every other year. So to answer your question, depending on what side of the draft board you're on, that's how I build my teams. We're talking NFFC drafts a lot for myself. If I'm in the back end of the 1st round, you can go double wide receiver and get 2 of the elite 10 guys. You can get one of those receivers and an elite running back, one of the top 6 running backs that I love, right? You could split them, and then you start off the 3rd round with one of those picks 25 to 27 overall, where you're still facing a Calvin Ridley, a DK Metcalf, a T Higgins, a Keenan Allen. So I know if I'm in the back end of the 1st round, I got any option I want, any combination I can do. I can get 2 monster wide receivers and 1 monster running back. I can go 3 wide to start, knowing that I'm not at I don't miss out on the cliff of wide receivers before it gets a little ugly, and I don't want those receivers. So I can position myself based on where I am in the 1st round.
This is interesting stuff. Inside the mind of a guy who only wears V-necks.
I hope you you made fun of me for my shirt last week. So
you turned a crew neck into a V-neck. It was very unnecessary. Your tight end strategy.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing it right now I'm in the middle of best ball, so that's fresh in my mind, and it's kind of a different strategy because I'm looking for guys who are going to pop. But I get my tight end and then I wait. And I don't like a lot of people in the middle. And then I hit a spot where I like Freiermuth, and then I don't like anybody. And actually someone asked this a little earlier. Scott Komet in the chat asked about Hayden Hurst. And I know like our Carolina writer wrote this great thing about Hayden Hurst. It was a little while ago. It's a little old now, so I don't want to bring it up. But he did say like it looks like Hayden Hurst, could be a weapon in this offense. Yeah. Like a lot of young quarterbacks.
So, well, let's look at that Carolina. You want to let's real quick just talk about that Carolina offense while we're on the topic. Yeah, Hayden Hurst, Nando, is definitely a tight end I target as my tight end 2 in those last couple rounds. He's surprisingly still not really getting drafted that much, and if he does, it is in the 18th, 19th rounds as a tight end 2. I think it's a great pick. Okay, especially when you wait on tight end and you want to put your tight end room together, which I do most of the time in my drafts because there are a bunch of tight ends that I do like this year after the Pat Freiermuths and David Njoku's of the world come off. For me, it's kind of the same strategy you hear with most fantasy analysts and players. If you don't get an elite one, you're waiting till the end. I really don't like the middle, the middle targets of like George Kittle is usually now the tight end 6 or 7 that comes off the board. For me, he's the last of the elite guys. I won't draft him this year. Spoiler alert, there you go. There's one guy that I won't be in on, Nando, is I don't like to draft George Kittle this year. I take Kyle Pitts and Dallas Goedert before him. Most drafts, you'll actually see you'll see Kittle go before that. But if I miss that tier of Evan Ingram, Pat Freiermuth, David Njoku, Dalton Schultz, I'm usually skipping that tier, and then I'm trying to put together a tight end room. I'll take 3 guys. In my drafts, are always 20 rounds. So the Tyler Higbees, the Dalton Kincaids, the Sam Laportas of the world. I usually put together a mismatch, whatever,
Mishmash, I think is the term.
Mismatch of that. And then a guy like
we accept smorgasbord if you want to go that way.
Yeah, a guy like Hayden Hurst is actually, a solid tight end too. Just because you look at that Carolina offense, DJ Chark is banged up. I know they're expecting him back, relatively soon here. Terrace Marshall, same thing, banged up. So they've been missing camp for a little bit here. And it seems like Hayden Hurst and Adam Thielen are the 2 guys that Bryce Young is connecting with more. And you could see these guys getting 5-6 catches every week, and they're cheap prices. So Adam Thielen is actually a player that I never expected to draft.
You love Thielen and misspelling his last name.
I love misspelling it on purpose in my articles, just so you could correct. But I just think that Adam Thielen is one of these receivers in round 12 or 13. You could put him on your team as wide receiver 5 or 6. And he'll go out there and get you. He's nothing exciting. He's not going to win you your league. It's not going to. But if you have some injuries or whatever early, you throw him into your lineup as a flex play, he'll give you 12 points every week. He'll be the 6 for 60 type wide receiver. And maybe even Hayden Hurst can do that as well. So let's see how quickly Jonathan Mingo comes along. A lot of drafters like taking Mingo as a high upside pick in that offense. But, Hurst and Thielen are 2 unsexy names that can help your fantasy team.
Watch Thielen do like one of those 12, 10, 125, 2 touchdowns. Let's say 1 touchdown week 1, and him be like the guy on waiver wire week 1.
Listen,
I could see that happening.
I don't know how many waiver wires he's going to be on unless you're playing in really shallow leagues. But
no, I think it really.
Listen, I don't know about those numbers because I don't think this Carolina offense wants to play shootouts. I think they want to play a lot of ball control. I think they want to rely on their defense. You're going to see Carolina in a lot of these 20 to 13 games. So it's not an offense you want to heavily invest in, Nando, but like I said, I could see him as a decent wide receiver 5 where I was never, ever selecting him. But as we come to these final 2 weeks, he'd probably wind up being on a handful of my teams. Real quick,
I think he'll be in a lot of waiver wires in like for normal people leagues.
Yeah, one of the other tight ends we actually just mentioned that I was definitely not selecting for months. But now, again, another guy that I'm starting to rethink at the tight end position is David Njoku. And I just think it's because Deshaun Watson seems like he's got a real good connection with Njoku. It seems like his, Njoku's not going to be one of those players that, comes off the field that much. I didn't, as I looked at the tight end position, Nando, these last couple of months, I was like, I'm not going to take Njoku as tight end 9 or 10 off the board. He was going around a pick 100. I said, that's it. If I don't get one of the elite guys, I'll punt till after that. But for some reason, Njoku's now come down the board a lot. His ADP is about 122. That's usually about the time I'm looking at the tight end position right there. And he's an athletic guy. I just didn't want to get involved in an offense in, June and July, where I looked at it and I said, you know what? They have Amari Cooper. They have Elijah Moore. I thought Donovan Peoples-Jones could still play a nice role. I just thought I would get caught in too many weeks with Njoku, for pick 100, where he produces too many 4 for 40 type weeks, and you need the touchdown. But I can actually see now as we go on that maybe Njoku's going to be Watson's main guy a lot of these weeks.
The main guy.
Could be. A lot of us are torn on. A lot of people still love Amari Cooper at his price, that early price. Elijah Moore's been banged up in camp, but he's, a lot of people think he'll be the apple of Deshaun Watson's eye. But maybe, just maybe, it's Njoku, and maybe he's the guy that you want at the tight end position for his price on the draft board.
You are super biased with Elijah. That was like a Chris Vaccaro guy last year. DeAndre Swift and Elijah Moore are Chris Vaccaro guys over the last few years. You must be so torn about what to do here.
Well, definitely not DeAndre Swift. I liked Swift a couple of years ago a little bit. But Elijah Moore last year, I definitely loved. Nando, speaking of this Cleveland Browns offense, I've been I've been saying it on shows for the last couple of months. I was buying into this offense big time. I really was. I really thought that this was the sneaky offense that could be a top 5 offense. I was in love with Deshaun Watson coming into this year. I didn't think he belonged to be going in that 90 to 100 round overall range at quarterback. I thought he belonged more in the elite 8 top guys that go in the top 60 more than that, quarterback 9 to 12 where he's going currently. And people are like souring even more as the days go by on Deshaun Watson. I saw it differently, most of the summer. I'm starting to get these vibes as the big drafts come. Is this Cleveland Browns offense set up to be this year's 2022 Denver Broncos offense?
No.
Why not? I'm just saying. It just
Russell Wilson's like 38 and can't run anymore. Deshaun Watson's got fresh legs and he's super talented.
I'm just saying, as a whole, like you look at the Cleveland Browns offense. They have weapons everywhere, just like the Broncos we thought last year had weapons everywhere. You have Watson as the Russell Wilson. Listen, we get a quarterback. Russell Wilson last year was going in that 75 to 100 overall range as like QB 8, 9, 10, just like Watson is, right? You had a good receiver in Elijah Moore, just playing like the Jerry Jeudy type role. Sutton as the Amari Cooper. Like, it was just set up where the fantasy community was buying into that Broncos offense last year as that sneaky offense to rocket ship and carry it. And then we couldn't draft Sutton and Jeudy enough. We wanted Russell Wilson as our sneaky quarterback. Now you look a year later, it just seems like the Browns offense sets up like this. And now you hear over the last couple of weeks about the struggles that they're having in camp, and I'm just saying, maybe Watson's not going to return to glory that he had, before everything went down with him. Maybe it's been too long of a layoff. Maybe, I'm just saying, it's possible that this offense can dupe us all, where we all have high hopes for it, invest, in all these players in the top 100, and can let us down.
I think this is interesting because I see it like the difference to me is that Russell Wilson had that down year in Seattle the year before, right? Like he showed signs of it, and he's like 8 years older than Watson, right? So I don't know how, like, I'm saying 8, like maybe it's 6, but I feel like that's the key call. And also Nathaniel Hackett by week 3 had to bring in a guy whose job was just to help him manage the clock. You know what I mean? Like, I got a little more faith in the coaching staff, but like, there are all these little,
that's definitely
things like disaster I don't feel like it's teetering on disaster, but I will agree with you. Like Amari Cooper sometimes doesn't show up on the stat sheet at all.
Right.
Njoku has had so many down weeks and so many injuries, and like people are just embracing him like he hasn't. It's an unsettled run game behind Chubb, I would say. I think unsettled is a good word. Like Pierre Strong's coming in now.
Disaster. Imagine if this team, I don't even want to say it out loud because if
say it out loud.
If Chubb missed time, I mean, this offense could completely crumble. They need Nick Chubb in the backfield to set up the play action pass. They have a strong offensive line. They're gonna rely on Chubb to be the focal point of this offense. So, I see where you're going. I see what you're saying.
I mean, maybe we could meet in the middle and be like, I could see them being 7-10, and not like disastrous 7-10, just like a disappointing. Like, man, how are the Browns still like not gelling? Maybe they're not gelling. Maybe that's the.
It's a tough division and it's a tough conference. So they're definitely one of those teams that you could see them finishing under 500. But
Donovan Peoples-Jones is. Impeccable.
Oh, that's still your guy. You'll always remember your Donovan Peoples-Jones call of 2022.
Wasn't really a call. It was just very obvious, and you mocked me for it, like you mocked the Commanders, and or you mocked Logan Thomas, or whoever you want to peg as their tight end, as their Travis Kelce. Want to ask. What? No, you go ahead. We don't have a lot of time left.
Yeah, go ahead. Because as we're going through these teams and names, another name on my list of players that I was out on that late in the draft season, I can't believe that I'm actually looking at when I'm in my drafts and I say, you know what? If this guy's available, I'm taking him. And that's the guy who burnt me the most last year, Nando. And it's Courtland Sutton.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if Jerry Jeudy didn't get hurt, would you still be saying that?
That's a good question. I mean, but we have to factor all these things in, Nando. Courtland Sutton was somebody I wasn't even looking at. He would come around a pick 100, during online championship season in June and July. And now the offense seems to be falling apart. You hear, there was already all the whispers weeks ago of how good Sutton was looking with losing the weight and the routes and just –
right,
all glowing reports, and you can't take that. You got to take it with a grain of salt. Maybe this is just beat reporters hyping up the team and him as a player.
I don't think beat reporters do that, knowing them. I think that's a thing they do.
Yeah, I mean, listen, with Jeudy out probably 2 to 4 weeks now. That's the latest report. Is it should be back between 2 to 4 weeks. He's not going to be gone forever, but maybe Courtland Sutton gets off to a hot start. I can't see anybody else in this offense being the top target, right? So just by default, Courtland Sutton's got to see 6, 7, 8 targets early in the season in September. And maybe he's that guy that gives you 6 for 75 and a touchdown. And he's going right now. His ADP over the last week is 77, right? So you're getting him in the 7th round of your draft as your wide receiver 3 or 4. So it's a guy that I was out on as a 9th round price, but because of everything that's happened over these last couple of weeks, we already lost Tim Patrick out of this offense.
Yeah.
Okay. KJ Hamler, the unfortunate issue with his heart, he's not there. Dulcich, you're hearing bad reports about him being a part-time tight end here. Okay, now with Troutman in town, and that's Sean Payton's boy. Like, it's just process of elimination. How much, how far along is Marvin Mims in this offense to, be a big contributor in September? For me, it's a process of elimination. It's not a big target tree in Denver here. So Courtland Sutton is somebody that I don't have any shares of. I haven't drafted him the first couple of months. I didn't want it. As fantasy players, like I said earlier, you got to forget about last season. But I guess I was so scarred from last year that he really wasn't a guy that I wanted coming into the season. But now I could see a pathway for him to be successful as my flex play every week.
So you're saying Courtland Sutton is
money,
and Jerry Jeudy is.
Wow. Look at you. Like I said, you're having too much fun over there.
I know. All right, we gotta wrap this up. I'm gonna give you 2 choices. Do you want to take a deep dive into the Washington Commanders odds, or do you want to answer like 2 questions of people who were in the chat? One. How about one?
Definitely not the Washington odds question.
All right.
Dad.
Well, I got to find a good one. I haven't really been following along.
You're
You know what? Here, just grade this team. This is from Steven FL. He's in Florida. He's got due to hurricane prep. He had to draft his team with no cheat sheets. It's a 10-team half PPR league, which I know you play in a lot of those. His quarterbacks, Lawrence. His wide receivers are Jefferson, Waddle, Ridley, and Pickens. His running backs are Stevenson, Pacheco, and Robinson. His tight ends, Kincaid. That running back room is in trouble, man.
What was the running backs again?
I don't even know which Robinson he's referring to.
What was the running backs real quick again?
Stevenson, Pacheco, Robinson.
That's doable with those receivers and Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, no, it's a good team. He should let his team auto pick in a hurricane year in and year out. Well,
that was an auto pick. He did it without cheat sheets. But thank you for understanding the point of grade this team.
Draft like that going forward. No doubt about it. Listen, last one I want to talk about.
We gotta go. We gotta admit.
Jordan Addison.
Oh.
Don't forget him in your drafts. He was the rookie He was the rookie wide receiver. I was not going to be in on this year. I wanted to fade him in the 8th round price tag. I just thought he'd at best be the 3rd target in that Vikings offense. But the more I think about it and see, you know what? Listen, Hawkinson's been like, I don't know what he's doing. He's got an ear infection. He's got a back issue. Even regardless, with those 3 guys out on the field, with Jefferson, Hawkinson, and now Addison, there's going to be enough to go around in this offense. They're a terrible defense. They're going to be playing high-scoring games, and Jordan Addison in the 7th round as another guy that's your wide receiver 3-4 can definitely pay off big time. Like I said, Nando, last week, and I'll say it again this week, you don't want to come out of round 7 or 8 this year without at least one of those dozen receivers that's always there out of the group, that we talk about. So Elijah Moore and Cortland Sutton and Addison and Sky Moore and all these guys. There's just so many good wide receivers sitting there in round 7 that you want to get one of these guys as your wide receiver 4 or 5.
Hey, man. Thanks for respecting the fact I had to leave at 12:30 and talked right over it.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Happy birthday, Chris Vaccaro. Everyone wish him a happy birthday
Thank
on
you.
Twitter. Chris Vaccaro GST will be posting leg shots from the poolside all weekend. Yeah. Good luck with your 10 drafts.
Yeah, it's about 10 drafts. You're right.
Maybe like 7. You're not going to be here. You're not going to be here next week.
John. Next week, Nando will be filling in. He'll be getting who you got filling in for me?
John Legueza, I think, is coming.
There you go, Big John Stud. So I'll be out in Vegas.
You said you don't like him, but I think it's okay. I'll get along with him.
Sounds good.
You're not really going to draft poolside, are you?
No, I said I'll be in drafts, and then when I'm not in drafts, I'll be sitting poolside. That'll be my next week. I'll be thinking.
Look out, ladies! Here comes a man with a big V-neck tan coming your way. Actually, he doesn't because he doesn't do his own yard work. Anyway, happy birthday, man! This is a great show.
That's Nando, always a pleasure dealing with you for an hour.
You love it. Goodbye, everybody.